Hey everyone, it's Dan Sfera. Welcome back to dansfera.com. This is the place where we interview business people, entrepreneurs. It's the place where entrepreneurs can learn a whole lot about business. I tell you guys I read a lot and I interview authors. We interviewed MJ DeMarco, founder of limos.com. And today our guest is Cameron Harrell, author of Double Double, How to Double Your Profits and Revenue in 3 Years. And Cameron, many of you guys may have heard of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. He was the COO, is that correct? The COO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK?
That's correct. Chief Operating Officer from October 2000 to 2007.
Okay. He also blogs, backpocketcoo.com. Of course, we're going to put all those links on this video once it's up. And we're going to focus on his book because I got it on my Kindle. And I paid $8.99 for it. It's a great price. And I'm about 30% through. And it's a very good book. It talks about, like I said, how to double your profit and revenue in 3 years for your business. And we're going to talk a lot about the book. And Cameron's in Vancouver on his way to the airport. So we're going to try to make this about a 30-minute interview. So Cameron, thank you very much for coming on today.
You're welcome, Dan. Glad to be here.
So let's get right into it. For those people who may not know who you are, and we're going to spend the most of the time talking about your current endeavors, but just give us a brief background on who you are and where people may know you from.
Sure. As you mentioned, I was the Chief Operating Officer for 1-800-GOT-JUNK through the peak of their growth. I joined the company as the 14th employee, and when I left 6.5 years later, we had 3,100 employees system-wide. We were operating in 330 markets in 4 countries. So that's a company that I'm very well known for. I also had built 3 other companies prior to that where I was either a co-owner of the company or a member of the senior leadership team. So I opened up the west coast of the United States for college pro painters. I helped build out a chain of auto body collision repair shops. And I helped build a private currency company that we sold back in January of 2000. So that kind of led me to really digging into what did I love to do. And when I left 1-800-GOT-JUNK, I decided that if I looked at the 2 or 3 core things of what I would love to do every day and things that I would do for free except my kids have to eat, I really came up with the fact that I love doing speaking events to entrepreneurial audiences, and I love mentoring and coaching entrepreneurs. So I built a business called Back Pocket COO, where entrepreneurial companies can have me in their back pocket. That's what I do today.
Okay. And any reason why it's not Back Pocket CEO? Is that because you prefer to be the operations guy?
Yeah, I like to work with the CEOs and with the entrepreneurs, so they tend to have a vision for where they're going and pretty clear ideas of what they want to build. They often lack some of the operational excellence and at times even accountability. Sometimes some very, very operationally fantastic CEOs like to be held a little bit more accountable or like to have someone confidential they can bounce ideas off of. So I like being that resource in their back pocket rather than being a CEO trying to tell them what to do. I like to tell them how to do what they already know they want to do.
Okay. And so what was the inspiration for the book? I listened to your recent podcast. I forgot who it was with, and you kind of talked about that, but kind of share with my audience what your inspiration for this book was.
Sure. I started getting asked by a lot of my clients. I mentor CEOs all over the world. In fact, I've done speaking events now in 18 countries to entrepreneurial audiences. And after they hear me speak, they always want more information to give to their employees or to their clients. So they asked me to put together a book of all of my best content. And then I also had a couple of speakers bureaus that pushed me and recommend me to speak at big conferences. And they actually asked me for some extra content as well. So it really didn't come out of a burning desire for me to write it. It came from demand from the entrepreneurial community.
Right. And I'm sure your experience with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, because that's kind of the brand that people... it's a household name basically, so that's kind of like what people will associate you with. In the book, I'm about 30% through. You talk a lot about the painted picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into what that means. And you bring a lot of examples from 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And you were talking about how you were more of the operations guy. You were less creative at that time, and more, focused on how to get there rather than where you want to get or why. And so talk
Correct.
about your co-founder, the CEO, Brian. you know, he was the guy who kind of was responsible for painting the vision or the painted picture. Kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Brian is very typical as an entrepreneur. They often have very, very strong visions of what they want to build and where they want to go. And then when they sit down and think about it, they tend to get stuck, or oftentimes if they're not stuck, they tend to get distracted. Often they'll have that big shiny object where a cool idea will take them off on a little hyperlink. So Brian and I had met in an entrepreneurial group called the Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO. We were actually in the same forum group and had been meeting for about 5 years. And Brian asked me if I would come behind the scenes and coach him on growing his company. So that's really what I did, is I actually went in for a 3-month contract to help him start growing the business and coaching him. And then right away we found out that it would be much more important or impactful for me to actually be there on a day-to-day basis than to try to coach him on a 3-month contract. So I ended up joining him full-time, and away we went. Brian's skills were very, very strong at vision and inspiring people, and we became a perfect match where I could actually help on the operational side and Brian could keep everyone inspired and focused on the future.
Are you still involved with the company, 1-800-GOT-JUNK?
No, I left there in May of 2007.
Okay.
Since then, I've coached about 20 different entrepreneurial companies around the world. A few of them now rank as some of the top companies to work for in Canada. But I've coached companies in Geneva, Berlin, Mexico, Australia, the U.S.
Okay. And is Brian still the CEO, or did he move on?
No, he's still there as the CEO.
Okay.
He started the company in actually in '98. So, or sorry, in 80, was it 88 or no, 89? So he's actually been running the company now for 22 years.
Wow.
Running the company for more than half his life.
Is it still private, or have they gone public?
Still privately held,
Private.
no intention of ever going public.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've used them before, so that's kind of how I saw the story on CNBC a couple years back, and one day I needed to clean out my office, and I called them up, and it was great. But back to you. So we're going to talk about your painted picture because you share it in the book, but kind of explain what a painted picture is in your words.
Sure. The idea of a painted picture is something that we learned from an Olympic coach. This was a couple of years prior to me joining 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We were at an event, and this high-performance sports psychologist talked about how athletes visualize themselves in the moment of the event and how they have this very, very strong vision of themselves executing the event. So at the time when they're actually performing the event itself, they feel like they've done it so many times that they operate on instinct. He gave us another analogy of a movie, that if you saw a scene in a movie, you could recreate that scene. And he said that if entrepreneurs have this very clear vision or movie in their mind of what the company looks and feels like 3 years out, if we can communicate that movie to everyone around us, to our suppliers, to our employees, to our customers, if everyone can see the same vision of what we can see, then all these people will help execute and make that vision happen. So it's really the manifestation of that dream.
Right, and 3 years is important because you described it perfectly in the book. You said the job of a CEO is to have 1 foot planted in the present and 1 foot leaning out, right? That's the phrase you use, leaning out 3 years into the future, and his job is to kind of paint this picture of where the company should be and not necessarily worry about why, but or the how, because the how will take care of itself.
Correct. And the reason for 3 years is if you lean too far out into the future, you fall over. You know, if you go 4 or 5 or 10 years out, it's too hard for people to wrap their head around. The company looks too different and feels too different, and they all kind of shrug their shoulders and say, yeah, that's too far away. 3 years is far enough of a stretch, but it also feels doable. It feels tangible. So yeah, the entrepreneur's role is always to kind of run out to the mountains and climb up to the top and look off into the future and then come back and tell people what they saw. The team's role is to figure out how to make that happen. So it's almost like the entrepreneur goes in these little rides in the time machine 3 years out. He doesn't know what happened on the 3 years in between, but he can describe the future. So he comes back to today and tells us what he sees, and we figure out the steps to get there.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with my co-host, Don. He's usually the co-host for my Clinical Trials Guru. He's sitting there nodding his head because he's an entrepreneur. What do you think about all this, Don? Like painting the picture and all that stuff?
I think he's right on the mark with that. You have to. You gotta have a vision of where you want to get to. You've got to look at what's going on right now and do what I call as is and where you want it to be, and then compare the difference, and then you figure out how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
That's the clear point. That is it Don or Dan?
I'm Dan. He's Don.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the clear point that Don just made was that you're really looking at the future, and that's your future state, and then you look at today, and that's your current state. And if you do a SWOT analysis on your business and just look at your current strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, everything in between is the stuff you have to do. And what you do is just like a jigsaw puzzle, is you just start doing the corners and the sides of the puzzle. Well, just like your business, you find the core areas and start working on those, and then you build it up from there until you hit that finished vision.
Talk a little bit about, and we're going to get back to your personal painted picture, and we're going to see how close you are at reaching that as a reality. But talk to us a little bit about the reverse engineering. You mentioned that in one of the other chapters. Reverse engineering your business from your goals to where you are now, and kind of how you work your way back. How does one do that?
I think it's very similar to that jigsaw puzzle analogy, that if you have a clear picture of the jigsaw puzzle, and then you see all the pieces sitting on your table, you find the corners of the jigsaw puzzle first, and you put those in place. And then you put the sides of the jigsaw puzzle in second, and then you look for some of the big shiny objects, and you put those in, and then you fill in the blanks. Very similar to your business. Once you have a clear vision of the future, look for what the corners of that, or the core parts of that painted picture are. So what is your core purpose? What are your core values? Can you articulate and communicate that vision or that painted picture? Do you have a strong BHAG in place? So then from there, you start building out your team and your financial structure and your operational meeting rhythms, and you start building that framework around your business. So that's how you start reverse engineering it. Every sentence in that 3 or 4 page painted picture, that description of your business, every sentence could be achieved by maybe 2 or 3 different projects. So you and your team figure out which projects will make those sentences come true, and then you start working on those projects, much like you build a home. You put the foundational things in first, and you build up from there.
Now, Cameron, with a Back Pocket COO, without getting into specific names unless you want to, what type of clients do you work for?
Yeah, I've mentored an awful lot of companies. I've mentored the founder, and still do, the founder of Media Temple, a big hosting company. I work with the CEO of iContacts. I work with Grasshopper.com.
Wow.
Nurse Next Door, Yannick Silver, a big internet guru. So all kinds of clients. I Love Rewards. I've got clients from all over the world that I've worked with.
And so Grasshopper is that one, they have that wildly popular blog, right?
That's right. Grasshopper, I taught the their CEO at MIT at the Entrepreneurial Masters program a few years ago.
Ah, okay. Did you have anything to do with their blog? Because they were one of the first ones to start doing that.
Yeah, no, I didn't have anything to do with their blog. I had a fair amount to do with teaching them how to leverage free press and how to generate free media coverage about their company. So that's probably some of the ways that they got their blog out. But no, they're very, very strong, very operationally savvy, very amazing culture, really, really great, young, strong team.
Yeah, I'm trying to get their CEO on the show as well. Now,
I know David Hauser really well, so if you want an introduction, happy to make one, and I'll push him on for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, David. I tweeted back and forth with him a few months ago. He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, if you need an introduction to anybody, let me know. I've mentored the CEO of Headsets.com, and there's all kinds of really good companies out there you could interview.
Wow. Now, are you taking on new clients? Because I know, and we're going to get into this now, your personal painted picture. You say you only choose to work with clients that you want to. Are you at that stage yet, or are you still working with people that you don't want to work with?
No, I only work with clients that are young, fun, entrepreneurial, high viral, high growth, and pre-public. I actually have a full slate of clients right now. I have 2 sitting in the waiting queue. And it's funny because my dad actually called me the other day and gave me the name of a company that he thought I would be good to mentor for. And I said, no, it's just not in my industry. It's an exploration business in the mining industry, and it's not my space. So yeah, for me, it's not about chasing the dollar. It's about working with really great entrepreneurial organizations that have got a great product and have got a good viral program. You think of Media Temple, these guys do more on Twitter than anyone else in the hosting space. Fantastic, fantastic customer service. And they're just fun to work with. They have an amazing, amazing culture.
Wow. I got to check them out because I'm looking for some web hosts using GoDaddy now. Let's talk a little bit about making money, because one of my goals is to eventually become an angel investor, or just consult in exchange for equity like you do. How important Is that something you look for in every company that you work with? You mentioned pre-public companies, so you get some equity. Is that a driving point for you? Is that something you look for when choosing who you're going to work with?
Yeah, the pre-public is actually something slightly different. I work with companies that have not gone public yet because I'd rather not have to work around the red tape and bureaucracy of Sarbanes-Oxley and all the legal restrictions they have.
Oh, okay.
It's just fun to work with entrepreneurial companies. So it's less about having the economic upside with options or equity, and it's more about just working with companies that are young and nimble and can really run. That being said, I do have a number of companies that have given me equity in their business, either to have my brand on their name, my name as a board of advisor or a mentor. I've had others that have given me a portion of my fee in equity instead of paying all of the fees up front.
Okay. Now, is that something you would recommend to other people in your position to kind of look for equity, or is that something that's kind of on a case-by-case basis? What would you recommend?
I think it's really on a case-by-case basis. You also have to look at what each person's individual financial structure is. Do you have enough cash-paying clients to be able to pay all your bills and invest in yourself and build out your future? And then can you have some upside with some equity in some of these companies to be able to give yourself some additional bonuses? So I think there's opportunity there, but I think if you start putting all your eggs in one basket and start taking on lots and lots of clients who just give you equity, you're probably going to end up with a similar model to what the venture capital community has, which is
Right.
1 out of 10 blow the doors off. Well, you better make sure you've got 10 or 20 good companies in your portfolio.
Right, yeah, it's definitely a hits business, and you have really no way of knowing which one's going to succeed. And I mean, there's so many factors that go in place. So cash flow is obviously something important to you, but equity, it's something that's nice to have every now and then as well.
Yeah, what I'm starting to do now is do a little bit more work in the technology space and working with some of the high growth companies in the tech sector, and then looking to get some advisory roles with them where I can have equity and options. So looking for companies that are VC and angel funded, but are not yet public. And at least now I know that they have the ability to get follow-on funding and can really grow. So I'm looking again for that growth company, but they have to be young, fun, entrepreneurial, high viral.
Right. Do you think we're in a bubble? Are we in a tech bubble right
I
now?
think we're in a complete economic bubble right now. I mean, the fact that the market continues to sit and wait for the Fed to stimulate the economy so we don't go into recession is pretty much the writing on the wall that we're getting ready to go into this next recession. I've been calling it for 2.5 years, saying that this was not going to be a double dip, that we weren't going to really have a big bump. We were just going to continue to run flat. It's pretty much playing out. We had, the stock market jumped back up, but nobody's hiring. Companies are doing well and making money because they're being more efficient and they're cutting costs, but we're not going to stimulate the economy unless we stimulate small business.
Yeah, I got Don here making some noise. Don, this obviously is interesting to you. What do you have to say?
I mean, you've hit on some very profound statements. You're right. I remember one statement always ring in my ear when I was in college. My economic professor said, whenever the government tells you that something is going to happen or may happen, it's already happening.
Yeah,
and
I think we're already there. I mean, I sat with a guy who's on the Federal Reserve Bank and had dinner last November and asked him what he saw coming, and he said he sees 2011, 2012 being a recession with current interest rates in the United States staying about the same. 2013, 2014, he saw the recession continuing with current prime interest rates going 3 to 4 times their current levels. So you think about now borrowing money for your business at 11, 12% interest. What does that do to some of the companies that are out there? I think companies have to be very careful, very focused, and they're going to hire people or buy companies with the cash they've got when they're ready to go. But they're not adding people, in a frenzy like the government was hoping they would.
Yeah, wow, that's definitely something we all got to watch out for in the business community, or just in general if you live in this country, or in this day and age in the world.
And I'm an optimist. Like, I actually think this is a fantastic time to be an entrepreneur. But cash is king in a recessionary market. So what companies want to be doing now is building up their cash reserves so that they can do acquisitions, so they can grow, while everyone else is sitting around reading the paper and complaining about the recession.
absolutely.
That's what you should be doing. Back to your personal painted picture. And for those of you interested, you can find it on Cameron's blog as well as in his book. You talk about how you would like to sit on the board of directors for some public companies. Has that happened yet?
It has not happened yet, but this painted picture that you're reading now is the one that was launched January 1st of 2011, and it was describing what my company would look and feel like December 31st of 2013.
Right.
So I'm laying the groundwork now. I've started speaking at a number of venture capital sponsored conferences. This past week I spoke at a 600-person conference here in Vancouver called GROW, which was a combination of the entrepreneurial growth technology firms here in British Columbia and the venture capital community in San Francisco. So I'm starting to lay the groundwork and getting my name out. I spoke at a big venture capital firm conference, Matrix Asset Management, here in Vancouver about 3 months ago. So I'm laying the groundwork and getting the foundation going, and starting to tell people more and more now that I'm looking for these board of advisory roles, and starting to, it'll be there by the time we hit the end of the painted picture for sure.
That's right, yeah, I have no doubt about that. Now, for some of us entrepreneurs just getting started, and we're just figuring out how to run our small businesses, we're not quite where you are yet. What are some of the benefits of being on a board of directors for, let's say, a publicly traded company? What would be some of the perks?
The benefits for me are going to be that I can have a financial compensation package in place. So they typically give you a retainer year by year. Okay. They typically give you a stock options package year by year. I get to network and work with some really, really smart individuals from different industries and be on the board with them. And the board of advisory roles are very similar, or if I'm on a board of directors, I want to be there as an operational expert. The role that I play is very similar to the coaching and mentoring role that I play today. So it's just a way to work with really smart people, have some upside, have the financial compensation in place, and do the stuff that I already love to do.
Is it possible to be on more than one board of directors of a publicly traded company? Are there laws against having too many, or is there anything that you know of?
There's no laws on being. There's nothing against being on multiple boards. No.
Okay.
And I think in terms of too many, it's just more your focus. You have to be able to put in the time and focus to fulfill the role or your mandate on the board.
That'd be a sweet gig, man. I want to sign up for Apple, Google, Facebook when they come out.
That's right.
I'm trying to buy the Clippers, man, so I got to do it. But no, I could definitely see why someone would want to do that. And I never actually thought about that as a goal until reading your book. And that's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there can learn from. I mean, these little things that you talk about so far, and I'm only 30% through, but it never actually occurred to me, like, why someone would want to be on a board of directors. But now that you just described it, I mean, I might have to add that to my goal, man.
Well, one of the reasons for me doing the book Double Double was entrepreneurs learn differently. And what we like is a series of very easy to implement practical systems into our company. We don't want theory, right? We don't want to sit around and read all these concepts. We want people to give us the tools to help us grow our business. So I'm glad you're seeing some of the inspiration coming out of this chapter on Painted Picture, Chapter 1. If anybody's looking at putting a board in place for their company, board of advisors or board of directors, I actually have one of the chapters in my book covers how to put in place a board for your company as well.
Wow.
So that's part of the reason for me putting in there is twofold. One is to help companies do that, but secondly is if I get enough companies out there reading my book, putting in place a board, hopefully they'll reach out to me as being one of their board members as well.
Right, and the third thing is people like me will probably reverse engineer that and figure out how to get on board of directors. So
Exactly.
see, I can pick up things here and there that, and I'm encouraging others to kind of really read between the lines when you read any business book and kind of figure things out like that. But that's something I definitely, now that I'm reading your book, I'm going to consider for sure.
I'm getting a lot of companies actually buying copies of Double Double for all of their employees, and then once a month they're having all their employees read Chapter 1, and then the next month they're having all their employees read Chapter 2, and they're kind of going to use it this year as a learning tool for their organization to be able to have some dialogue and debate and discuss what systems from the book to be putting in place. So it's interesting to watch that happen.
Okay. Well, as we wrap up, Cameron, you got me all excited now about board of directors. What do you want to leave the entrepreneur, let's say someone who's just starting out a company and he's got a few employees, what advice do you want to give him, and what can he learn from the book?
Yeah, it's interesting. The last chapter of my book covers some leadership lessons that I wrote as letters to my 16-year-old self, lessons that I wish I'd known when I was younger. First one really is that it's about focus. more than anything, it's about entrepreneurs sitting down, no matter how big or how small you are, and really deciding what are the most impactful areas of the business that I should be working on right now, and then working on those. Instead of getting stuck in email and stuck in Twitter and Facebook and stuck on all the busy work that we tend to do as company owners, it's about sitting down on a daily basis and getting focused. And then the second tip I'd say is just have fun. Don't take yourself so effing seriously, right? It's a really, really good time running your own business. It sure beats working for the man. So have some fun along the way. Create a culture that inspires others, and you can have fun while you work. Whistle while you work.
Right. So are you, as we end here, are you one of those guys who's like a proponent of you have to be very passionate about what you're doing, or can passion kind of come as you learn more about your industry?
I don't think you necessarily have to be passionate about your industry. I think you have to be passionate about maybe what your industry is doing for your clients, for your suppliers, or you have to be passionate about the business itself. But it sure doesn't hurt if you're passionate about the industry or your product or service and the impact that it's having on people. I think that gets back to your core purpose, like why do we exist? My core purpose for Back Pocket COO is I love helping entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. So as long as everything I do is helping an entrepreneur make their dream happen, everything around me is easy.
Well, with that, Don, you got anything to add?
No, this has been quite interesting and quite educating for me. And it's also, it's good to hear some of the things that you're saying, because it assures somebody like me that I've been moving in the right direction.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for adding a new goal to my list, the board of directors. I'm very interested in this now, and we'll be.
Awesome.
I'll be tweeting with you later. I'm trying to get on some publicly traded companies myself. Okay.
Well, as I've always said with goals, it has to be measurable. So there either has to be a number sign, a dollar sign, or a percentage sign. So you can't just say being on public companies. You got to commit to a date or a number of public companies. Put something around it that's measurable.
We'll start with 1.
All right.
All right,
guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and we'll definitely put links for the book, and everyone go get the book, Double Double. I'll put the links on there. Thank you, Cameron.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
This
Bye,
is
Don.
Dan Sfera signing off from dansfera.com.